Hey y'all, my name is Gertie Sweet. I was delivered sometime after my birth to the orphanage at St. Michael's of Charleston, somewhere around the year 1700. I was in a worn white oak basket with a note bearing just my name, Gertie. Although the church tried many times to place me in a loving home, I did end up spending a good majority of my years there under their care. Eventually, I was taken in by a sea captain named John Sweetwater. Captain said I'd never be big enough to fill the britches of a real Sweetwater, but I needed a surname to be proper respectable in his society, so he named me Sweet. Even though he wasn't too keen at first to taking in a runt such as myself, he taught me to read and write and a good many other life skills, and so I'm grateful to him. May God rest his soul, and my most sincere apologies for any part I may have played in his demise. In the years prior to my work with Captain Sweetwater and the East India Company, I amassed a good number of troubles. Troubles being what I call the big bad luck and the wrong place, wrong time incidents that seem to cut on my life with frequent appearances. Folks seem to enjoy some of these tales, and I figured maybe, if I share them, others might avoid the calamities that I've endured. So without further ado, here is a tale of one of those troubles. The Burning Booger. Long before the black powder incident, but after I discovered that apple butter isn't my friend, I was sent to stay with the collier and his wife. They had a cozy little place on the edge of town. Mister ran out every day to fetch coal from the local mines and brought it into town to be sold. Now, like many other homes, I can't recollect their real names, just too many to remember, really. I do, however, in this case, recall their nicknames for each other, which were Battle Axe and Peckerwood. Every conversation between the two began or ended with those names. It was always Peckerwood this and Battle Axe that. That's likely why I remember them. Now, Battle Axe, she could not cook. Her food was so foul, it took everything I had to get through a meal without getting into trouble, or screwing my face up in a way that sorely aggravated either one or sometimes the both of them. Even if Peckerwood didn't much care for her cooking either, he'd get on to me too. I figured he must have reckoned out that if Battle Axe was busy with my troubles, she wasn't about his troubles, if you take my meaning. Peckerwood himself would always sit there every meal all stoic and surly, and I wondered how he managed it. That is, until I put two and two together after catching him having a nip from his pocket flask before he came in for dinner one evening. See, it happened that Peckerwood liked to brew his own spirits, and he had set himself up a still in the corner of the barn out by the house. So it was that I learned if I had a nip or two before dinner, I could get her cooking down without making a face. I was hopeful that I could avoid my really bad troubles and make a go of it here. As bad as Battle Axe's cooking was and Peckerwood's temper, it still beat the socks off of nuns with sticks and Father Carmichael haunting my every step. This particular night was early fall, so the sky darkened early. I lit this old handheld lamp that had the glass all broken out of it, and I headed out to the barn. It'd been one of them seasons that everyone sneezed from time to time, even myself. That dry, dusty barn didn't help at all. I had a sneezing fit so intense, I had to set the lantern down quickly on the stool Peckerwood had sit at in front of his steel boiler workings. I thought the worst was over and made to get my drink or two or three, when the hardest sneeze I have ever sneezed in my short life nearly knocked me off my feet. I instinctively covered my mouth with my hand like most folks. This time, though, on my finger landed the biggest booger I have ever seen. It was impressive, it was so big. I just sort of stared at it for a minute. I couldn't understand where something that big had been at inside my nose. I would have loved to have shown it to some of the kids back at St. Michael's because they would never believe me. After my shot wore off, I went to flick it off my finger, but the dang thing just changed fingers. Again and again I tried, but not only was it huge, it was sticky. I tried using my other hand to flick it off, which only moved it to the other hand. I even tried wiping the dang thing off on my woolen trousers, but that just made it fuzzy. I became somewhat frantic at that point. I knew old Battle Axe should be serving dinner soon, and my little rear end had best be ready to perform, or it was going to be a long night. The booger had to go. I flailed my arms and I jumped about, not thinking about anything except getting it off my finger. I was so busy I wasn't watching my feet too well and I tripped. The force of the fall was significant enough that it tore the booger from my finger at long last. Because I was so focused on it, I watched that booger sail straight through the flame of my old broken lantern, and it was so leany that it actually caught fire. Up and across the barn it flew like a tiny comet until it landed right in the back of Peckerwood's wagon. Unfortunately, the wagon was piled high with the hay he'd intended on hauling up to the mine for the animals up there the next morning. What with it being so dry and dusty, that stuff went up like tinder. The horse didn't appreciate the growing fireball behind it, and it let out a shrill cry of terror. Out of the barn it went, running full tilt across the yard and right down the lane towards town. That crazy horse carried that flaming wagon, the only route it was familiar with, right to the coal seller's barn. From there, the fire spread quickly. It was unfortunately the Great Fire of Charleston, for which I am truly, truly remorseful. Myself, I avoided the whipping I was sure I'd earned. But when Peckerwood came in the next morning and set down a handful of charred hay bits he'd found out in the barn, the look him and old Battle Axe gave me said it was time to move on. So I packed up my things and I hiked right back to St. Michael's. And that is the tale of the Burning Booger.